is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more RE3 Remake gameplay for you. And today I'm continuing my one and done list where I basically talk about Resident Evil characters that have only appeared in one major Resident Evil adventure and then unfortunately have just disappeared off the face of the earth. So we're going to be going on with this with the character of Carlos. Now, before I get into Carlos, I do want to specify this just because I know someone's probably going to ask. Yes, I know you can say, oh, he's been in more than maybe one game, but I said adventure. So, yes, while RE3 and Resident Evil Nemesis are, different stories, same thing, but, different ways of how they tell it, they are basically the same adventure in the same place at the same point in time. So, it's not like they're brand new games where he's doing something completely different. So, just in case someone's clarified that. And then I say the major adventures, not like some random non-canon thing. So, without further ado, let's get into Carlos, because I'll be honest with you, of all the one and done characters that we have in Resident Evil, and trust me, there's a lot of them, I think his one and doneness and just how he's kind of disappeared makes the least amount of sense of any of the characters. Because I'll admit, I do like Carlos a lot, and how and why he's been gone just makes little to no sense to me, especially with his perspective, which is very unique. But let's get into Carlos in terms of his events in Resident Evil 3. So Carlos obviously was working for Umbrella with the countermeasure team, and he comes in there following orders, and when he encounters Jill Valentine and she's basically completely against Umbrella, it's kind of unnerving to him, wondering why. We're trying to help people, what are you so on edge about? But eventually over the events he realizes what Umbrella really is and what they've been actually up to, and it completely just kind of changes his whole perspective. And I think that's what makes Carlos such a unique character, is that he's not like somebody that stumbled upon Umbrella and find out what they're up to. He's someone that was working for it, and also gives the perspective, not every single person that worked for Umbrella was necessarily a bad person. Some people just didn't know. I mean, so with Carlos, understand that he's been working for these bad people, it really just puts him in a fits of rage, and understanding why Jill was so anal against Umbrella and made him more determined to not only save Jill at that given moment, but also to help her fight against Umbrella and possibly any bioterrorism. So when we get to the end, the least amount of information that I can give you that we know about Carlos post Resident Evil 3, and it's not much. It's basically, he said his goodbyes to Jill and moved to South America, and that's it. And that's where I'm just kind of confused with this whole thing, because the point of this video is I want to see how Carlos can return in a new future Resident Evil title. But the problem with Carlos is he should have been in a lot of titles. There's so many moments in Resident Evil that are kind of tailor-made for him. So before I tell you how he can return in terms of like a future brand new title, I just look at what he's probably should have been in. Like, obviously he gained a huge respect, even flirted a little bit with Jill, but he obviously has the utmost respect for Jill. I mean, he admires Jill a lot. So I've always wondered how he would have felt knowing what happened to Jill during the RE5 events, and it's just how he would have reacted to that, and maybe even had a scene there, maybe even had a big role. But to me, it's so weird that he just disappeared off the face of the earth. Maybe even played a big role in her rehabilitation in some ways, but once again, it's not like Carlos was at that point where you just saw, it was a one adventure and you could just see him just riding off in the sunset. Carlos, his early history, he has a lot of guerrilla warfare experience, before we even see him in RE3. And he's someone that has a lot of experience doing that stuff. So to me, how he's just kind of disappeared and not tried to help prevent some of these bioterrorist threats, especially with his perspective of working for one, unfortunately, and realizing they were just using him to do their dirty work and stuff, and him thinking they were actually helping out, just has got a sting. And then his personality of just wanting to fight against that, just weird that he's just gone away. But nonetheless, here's how I feel like he could come back, and I think he could come back in a really cool way. Granted, it'd be a long time after we've last seen him. It's the same thing I said with Billy, because I'm kind of thinking like adventure post Death Island. I mean, yeah, you can think of stuff beforehand. Trust me, as I said, I just gave you some, but I'm just talking about brand new adventures. And you could still have one with him, maybe having some event in South America if he's still there. But to me, I feel like this would be a perfect thing, and it would tie into what's going on currently with Resident Evil. So, and also have a tag team that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but I think it'd be really cool. So as I said, Carlos has a very interesting perspective. Having worked for Umbrella and realizing that he was working for a bad company, that gives him a very unique insight about stuff like this, right? So what's going on currently in Resident Evil? You have the whole BSAA storyline of them going rogue. We still don't know the smoking gun, why they went rogue, why they were using bioorganic weapons to send into Resident Evil Village, but nonetheless they've gone rogue, and that's probably a big reason why Chris seems so jaded. So what better way to have him, team up with someone like a Carlos, who has that experience of working for someone you thought was doing the right thing, where really was just a shady company, or just in this case, started good but just went bad over time, and then having maybe Carlos help Chris, overcome and get through that, not turn into a jaded, just bad hero. Maybe he does questionable things, but maybe having someone like Carlos on his side could help him out, have interesting conversation. Not to mention, it'd be interesting to see how they talk about certain things. Like the obvious one would be Jill. They both have the utmost respect for her, and they have different perspectives for Jill, so it'd be cool to see that. Maybe even have Jill there as well, because I'd obviously want to see Jill and Carlos teaming up again, because I like their dynamic in RE3, but once again, the only thing with that is they said Carlos has been absent for about 2 decades and stuff, so it's amazing, because I just feel like maybe he's this whole time, what he's been up to this whole time, maybe he's been running his own racket in South America, maybe not like a public organization like the BSA, but maybe he's just been running an undercover racket down there in South America, and that he's been fighting bioterrorists his own way, because I just don't see him as a type to just sit down and do nothing. It's just unfortunate that Capcom apparently just doesn't want to do anything with the character, but I just see him as a fighter, and I feel like he'd be someone that'd be fighting, especially after what he went through in RE3, and obviously being around someone like Jill. I think that would inspire him to take up arms, and hopefully nobody has to go through what he did in working for a company inexplicably that did do the right things, but basically, misled people like Carlos. And by the way, I had to show this was a bad fail right here. And I said the Hunter's in this room, and I'm trying to get the big nade in there, but the old adage, the operation was a success, but the patient still died. I thought about blew myself to him coming, and then he comes in all politely, I guess, to make me feel a little bit better. But yeah, you gotta have a fail once in a while and a good laugh. But nonetheless, Carlos, man, I would love to see him. I said that Chris Carlos combination. I think that'd be nice. I really think that'd be really nice, and not to mention, I just like his personality too. As I said, he's always got to be, as he in his own words, wooing the foxy ladies, or in this case, Jill and stuff like that. But it's just, I like his personality. I can buy him. He definitely knows how to hold his own, and then his whole perspective. Why has he been absent this whole time, Capcom? I don't get it. Carlos needs to come back, and we can also make maybe other team ups he can be a part of. Even though unfortunately he's dead now, but not in the event of this game, but later on, it'd be cool to see someone like Carlos and Luis. Just in the way they both act, that'd be a dynamic tag team right there. Maybe too much fire for ourselves to handle, but nonetheless. But yeah, as I said, that perspective, and speaking of Luis, that's one thing I've always you could possibly do is, remember in RE4 with Leon being very, in RE4 remake, I want to say, but Leon being very distrustful of Luis, especially learning that he used to work for Umbrella. Maybe that comes back to haunt Carlos. Other people, maybe not as forgiving as Jill was eventually, but not having that perspective that, hey, he worked for him, but he wasn't like one of the bad people. He was trying to help out, just unfortunately didn't know what the higher ups were doing. But the point is, maybe that could come back to haunt him. Maybe ex-Umbrella people were trying to get him, take him out. But nonetheless, there's so much you can do with Carlos. And the fact that Capcom has just shelved him and not used him at all is just, it's a crime in its own right. Because as a once wise man once said, if you don't have Carlos, well then...
Hey, I told told you I couldn't leave you in a Carlos's world. That would just be too cruel.
You tell him, Carlos, but nonetheless, that's going to be the end of this video. And as I always say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. You guys always come up with cool ways to bring back characters I've been reading lately. So let me know how you think Carlos could come back in the franchise. And also, is it just me or is it weird that he's, of all the characters, not to say that other one-and-done characters don't have legit claims to coming back in the franchise, but I just feel like he's the weirdest one because I just feel like he's tailor-made to be in so many Resident Evil games, but the fact that they haven't used him since is just, it's a mystery in its own right. But regardless, that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all later. Peace.